The Galactic Research Council had explored thousands of planets, from icy wastelands to burning gas giants. Their scientists had classified each world with a danger rating, from Class 1, safe and peaceful, to Class 10, deadly and highly unstable. Anything beyond Class 10 was considered uninhabitable. Yet today, the Council had found something impossible. Inside a massive research station orbiting a red dwarf star, a team of alien scientists gathered around a large holographic display. The image showed a blue and green planet covered in swirling white clouds. It looked peaceful, but the data said otherwise. "This must be a mistake," one of the scientists, Dran, muttered. His blue, scaled fingers tapped the console nervously. "A Class 14 Deathworld. That can't be real." Dran's assistant, Kor, shook his head. His yellow eyes widened in fear. "The readings are correct. The planet has extreme gravity, dangerous weather, and unpredictable seismic activity. The surface is filled with deadly creatures, toxic plants, and uncontrolled natural disasters. No civilization could survive there." Yet the data clearly showed artificial satellites in orbit, cities, advanced technology. "There is intelligent life down there," Dran whispered. The entire room fell silent. A Class 14 Deathworld should be an empty wasteland, a place where no creature could evolve past basic survival. Yet somehow the dominant species of this planet was not just surviving. They had built civilizations, megacities, and space stations. "This breaks every law of evolution we know," Kor said. Dran swallowed hard. "We need to see it up close." The approach. A small observation ship detached from the research station and began its journey toward the Deathworld. The crew inside, a team of elite alien scientists, had spent their lives studying different planets. None of them had ever seen anything like this. As they entered the planet's orbit, their ship shook violently. "The atmosphere is chaotic," the pilot shouted. "High-speed winds, unpredictable storms. This place is alive." The ship's scanners beeped rapidly, detecting hundreds of natural disasters across the surface. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. The planet was constantly reshaping itself, and yet despite all of this, billions of intelligent beings were living here. "How are they not extinct?" Kor asked. Dran didn't answer. He was staring at a massive landmass on a holographic map. The ship's scanners zoomed in. It showed a megacity, so large it stretched beyond the horizon. Skyscrapers taller than anything the Council had ever seen. Vehicles moving rapidly across roads and skies. Networks of power grids and transportation systems. The inhabitants, humans, walked through their deadly world as if it was nothing. Kor's hands trembled. "They act like this is normal." Dran took a deep breath. "Because to them, it is." The nature of the Deathworld. The ship's systems continued analyzing the planet, trying to understand what made it so dangerous. The results were terrifying. Gravity. The planet's gravity was far stronger than the galactic standard. The scientists calculated that any of their species trying to walk on the surface would struggle to move, or even breathe. Yet the humans moved effortlessly, as if the crushing force didn't bother them. Climate. The planet's temperatures varied from freezing cold to burning heat within short distances. Deserts, jungles, tundras, all existed side by side. Most species would die from exposure, but the humans? They lived in all of them. Predators. The planet was filled with deadly creatures, some capable of crushing metal or moving at incredible speeds. Any other species would be at constant risk of extinction. But humans, they had tamed some of these creatures and used them for transport, farming, and even companionship. Natural disasters. Earth was a world of earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, and hurricanes. A peaceful planet might experience one disaster every few centuries. Here, disasters happened every single day. How can they build civilizations in such chaos? Kor whispered. Dran was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he said, "Because they are stronger than their world." The unknown civilization. The scientists had assumed that any species living on a death world would be primitive, struggling for survival. But Earth's inhabitants were different. They had built towering structures, mastered flight, and even reached space. Dran's mind raced. If they have survived here for so long, he muttered, what else are they capable of? A new fear crept into his mind. If these humans could conquer a Class 14 death world, what could they do to the rest of the galaxy? We need to report this to the Council, Kor said. Dran nodded. Yes. But first, we watched them. The observation ship remained in orbit around the strange, terrifying world known as Earth. Inside, Dran and his team of alien scientists gathered around the main console, analyzing data as fast as their computers could process it. The numbers didn't make sense. This is impossible, Kor muttered, his yellow eyes scanning the latest results. A planet this unstable should not support intelligent life. Dran didn't respond immediately. He was watching the live feed from the ship's high-powered cameras. The humans were everywhere, in deserts, mountains, frozen lands, and deep forests. They lived in massive cities filled with strange, fast-moving vehicles. Some even lived near active volcanoes or on islands constantly hit by storms. Kor's tail twitched nervously. I have studied thousands of planets, he said. No species should survive this. Dran finally spoke, his voice low. And yet, they do. The other scientists exchanged uneasy glances. It was one thing to read about a Class 14 death world. It was another to see an entire species living on it, as if it were nothing. They had to get a closer look. The invisible descent. The survey team decided to send down a small stealth probe. It was designed to be undetectable, hidden by advanced cloaking technology. It would land near a human city, observe their behavior, and send back valuable information. The probe descended through Earth's thick atmosphere. Almost immediately, it was hit by violent winds and sudden temperature shifts. It shook wildly, but its advanced stabilizers kept it on course. Finally, it reached the surface. It landed in a place the humans called a park, an open area with strange green plant life, small water bodies, and paths where humans walked. The probe's tiny cameras activated, sending a live feed back to the ship. The scientists watched in silence. A group of humans, children by the looks of them, ran across the grass, laughing and playing. One of them suddenly tripped and fell hard onto the ground. Kor winced. On most worlds, a fall like that could cause serious injury. But the child simply stood up, dusted off his knees, and continued running. Dran narrowed his eyes. Did you see that? Kor nodded. They recover. Fast. Then, something even stranger happened. One of the children picked up a large stick and pretended to swing it like a weapon. The others laughed and joined in, acting as if they were training for battle. Are they practicing combat? One of the scientists asked. Dran leaned forward. I don't think they're practicing, he said. I think they're born for it. The study of strength. As the probe continued gathering data, the team observed more humans in different environments. They watched workers lifting heavy objects with ease, runners pushing themselves to exhaustion, and scientists experimenting with dangerous substances. One shocking moment happened when the probe recorded a group of humans swimming in freezing water. On most planets, this would be a death sentence. But these humans simply laughed, climbed out, and jumped back in. Kor's jaw tightened. They feel pain, but they don't stop. Dran exhaled slowly. They have adapted to survive in ways we can't even understand. The scientists had seen species evolve to survive harsh conditions before, but humans, they didn't just survive. They conquered. The unbelievable technology. The aliens had assumed that if humans were living on such a dangerous world, they must be struggling. They were wrong. As the probe moved closer to the city, it scanned massive metal structures, glowing energy grids, and flying vehicles. These creatures had mastered engineering and technology despite their deadly world. One of the scientists shook his head. "They have space travel," he whispered. "They shouldn't." Dran understood his shock. To survive on a planet like Earth, a species should be using all its resources just to stay alive. But humans had done more than survive. They had built, created, and explored. That was when the scanners detected something even more terrifying. Kor checked the readings, and his body stiffened. "They have weapons." Dran looked at the data. The humans had machines capable of destruction, projectiles that could break through metal, and energy-based weapons far beyond what the scientists had expected. "They aren't just survivors," Dran muttered. "They are warriors." The room fell silent. For the first time, the scientists realized something chilling. The humans hadn't just evolved to endure their Deathworld. They had evolved to fight back against it. And if they could do that, what could they do to the rest of the galaxy? A mistake is made. The team continued watching in awe. But then, something unexpected happened. A loud beep echoed through the ship. Kor checked the readings, and his face turned pale. "The probe. It's been detected." Dran's eyes widened. "That's impossible. It's cloaked." But the screens showed the truth. The probe's signal had been hacked. Somehow, the humans had found it. On the live feed, the camera shook violently. Someone, a human, had grabbed the probe. The screen cut to static. A cold silence filled the control room. Kor's voice was barely a whisper. "They know we're here." Dran took a slow, shaky breath. This was not how they wanted first contact to happen. The humans had just discovered that someone was watching them. And now, the galaxy would learn what a Deathworld species would do when it realized it wasn't alone. The control room inside the alien research ship was silent. Dran, Kor, and the rest of the scientists stared at the screen, their minds struggling to process what had just happened. The humans had found the probe. It should have been impossible. The probe was equipped with the most advanced cloaking technology in the galaxy. No primitive species should have detected it, let alone captured it. Kor's voice broke the silence. "We should leave. If they can detect the probe, they might detect us." Dran didn't respond immediately. His mind raced through possibilities. This was dangerous, but also an opportunity. "They don't know who we are," he said slowly. "They only know that something was watching them." Kor frowned. "And what do you think they will do with that knowledge?" Dran turned toward the main screen. "That's what we're about to find out." The probe is studied. The live feed had gone dark. But the probe's emergency sensors were still sending weak signals. The humans had taken it to a research facility. Dran ordered the ship's high-powered cameras to zoom in on the location. What they saw was astonishing. The facility was massive, filled with advanced equipment, computers, energy reactors, and even a network connecting to distant locations. The humans were clearly not a primitive species. Then they saw them. A group of human scientists surrounded the probe, scanning it, taking it apart piece by piece. They worked with precision, moving quickly and efficiently. One of the alien scientists gasped. "They understand technology." Kor's hands tightened into fists. "They're trying to reverse engineer the probe." Dran leaned forward. Not just trying, succeeding. The shocking intelligence of humans. Over the next few hours, the alien scientists observed the humans carefully. What they saw shocked them. Speed of learning. The humans adapted quickly, figuring out parts of the probe's structure that should have taken years to understand. They tested different materials, ran simulations, and even built small replicas of the probe's components. Problem solving. When they encountered a piece of technology they didn't understand, they didn't stop. They ran experiments, worked together, and used logic to find solutions faster than any species the aliens had studied before. Curiosity and determination. The humans didn't just want to understand the probe. They wanted to go beyond it. Dran noticed that instead of merely copying the design, They were already making modifications and improvements. Core swallowed hard. They don't just learn. They innovate. Dran nodded. And that makes them more dangerous than we thought. The physical strength of humans. While the human scientists worked, the alien team also observed other parts of human society. They studied soldiers' training, pushing their bodies far beyond what should be possible. They watched workers lifting heavy loads, showing strength that made no sense for their small frames. They saw athletes running for hours without stopping. On most worlds, creatures evolved to avoid unnecessary exertion. Energy was precious. But humans thrived on pushing themselves beyond their limits. They are built to endure, Core whispered. Dran's eyes darkened. They are built to conquer. A dangerous realization. The team was still processing everything when an alarm rang through the ship. Emergency alert. One of the scientists shouted. A signal is coming from Earth. Dran turned sharply. What? Core checked the readings. It's a transmission. A message. Dran's heart pounded. From who? Core swallowed. The humans. For the first time, the scientists felt true fear. The message wasn't just random noise. It wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate communication. A moment later, the screen flickered. A video appeared. A human, one of their scientists, was looking directly into the camera and speaking. The alien scientists froze. They didn't understand the words, but the human's expression was clear. He knew someone was watching. Then something even more chilling happened. The human smiled. Dran's breathing slowed. They're not afraid. Core's hands were shaking. They know we're here. The unpredictable species. The transmission ended, but its impact remained. Dran turned to his team. We came here to study them. But they've just sent a message to us. Core exhaled shakily. They're trying to communicate. Dran shook his head. No, they're testing us. This changed everything. Most species, when encountering an unknown force, reacted with fear or aggression. But humans, they reacted with curiosity, with confidence. They don't see us as a threat, Core whispered. Dran closed his eyes. No. He turned to the screen, where the human smile still lingered in his mind. They see us as a challenge. Inside the alien research ship, silence filled the control room. The scientists stared at the dark screen where the human's face had just disappeared. The message had ended, but its meaning was clear. The humans knew they were being watched. Core turned to Dran, his voice unsteady. What do we do now? Dran didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing. They had come to study Earth, believing its life forms were barely surviving. Instead, they had found a species that thrived on a death world. And now, that species had just sent them a direct message. We analyzed the message, Dran finally said. Find out what they're saying. Breaking the code. The message was not in any known galactic language, but the scientists were experts in decoding. They fed the transmission into the ship's linguistic processors, running it through their most advanced translation algorithms. Minutes passed. Then an automated voice spoke. To the ones watching us, we see you. Core's breath caught in his throat. They're speaking to us directly. The translation continued. We do not know who you are, but we know you are there, and we are curious. The message ended. The control room was deathly quiet. Dran exhaled slowly. They are not afraid. Core shook his head. They're inviting us. No species had ever reacted this way before. Some ran, some fought, but these humans, they were reaching out. The debate. The research team broke into heated discussion. We should leave, one scientist insisted. They are too unpredictable. No, another argued. This is an opportunity. Imagine what we can learn from them. Dran listened carefully. He understood both sides. The humans were dangerous, but they were also fascinating. Core looked at Dran. You're in charge. What do we do? Dran's decision would change everything. He turned back to the screen. The humans had given them an opening. It was bold, risky, and unheard of. And yet, "We respond," Dran said firmly. Kor's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Dran nodded. "They have challenged us. Let's see how far this goes." Sending a repli. The scientists worked quickly. They recorded a simple message, ensuring it was clear and direct. Then, they sent it down to Earth. The reply was short but powerful. "We are watching. We are listening. We are here." The message was transmitted using a frequency the humans could easily detect. Then they waited. The humans react. The response didn't take long. Within minutes, the humans sent a new message back. The speed of their reaction was shocking. Most species took hours, days, or even weeks to translate and reply. The humans, they responded almost instantly. The message translated as, "Welcome, watchers. Let us talk." Dran leaned back, his heart pounding. "They want direct communication." Kor muttered, "They don't even hesitate." Dran's fingers curled into a fist. This was a new kind of intelligence. The humans weren't just surviving. They were engaging, adapting, and challenging the unknown. And now, for the first time in galactic history, a Class 14 Deathworld species was about to make contact. The decision. The scientists knew they had reached a turning point. One choice could change everything. They could stay hidden, continue watching from a distance, avoiding risk. They could leave, erase all evidence, and abandon the study. They could answer the humans directly. Dran made his choice. He turned to his team. "Prepare the communications array." Kor blinked. "You're serious? We're speaking to them." Dran's expression was firm. "Yes, we came here to study them. Now we will see them face to face." The team worked quickly, activating the ship's holographic transmission system. Dran took a deep breath. For the first time, an alien species would reveal itself to humans. The screen lit up. A connection was made. And Earth was waiting. Inside the alien research ship, tension filled the control room. The moment had arrived. For the first time in galactic history, a Class 14 Deathworld species, humans, would see an alien face. Dran stood in front of the holographic communication system, taking a deep breath. The ship's advanced technology would project his image to Earth while displaying the human in real time. The screen flickered. A connection was made. Then a human appeared. Meeting the human, Dran and his team stared at the figure before them. The human was male, wearing a dark uniform with strange symbols on his chest. His short brown hair was neat, his expression calm. But his eyes, they were sharp, intelligent, filled with something Dran couldn't quite understand. The human tilted his head slightly. Then he spoke. "Greetings. Who are you?" The alien scientists exchanged glances. The translation system had worked instantly. Dran stepped forward. He had prepared for this. He kept his voice steady. "We are explorers. We come in peace." The human studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled. "I see." Kor tensed beside Dran. The human was not surprised. No fear, no shock. He accepted the situation immediately. How? The calm reaction. Dran had expected many reactions: fear, excitement, maybe even panic. But this human acted as if talking to aliens was normal. Dran asked carefully, "You are not afraid?" The human's smile grew. "Should I be?" The question sent chills through the alien team. What kind of species was this? Kor whispered, "They're not just accepting us. They are testing us." Dran felt the same. The human was observing them, measuring their responses. It was not fear that controlled him. It was curiosity. The unshaken species. Dran had studied thousands of species. Most would react with caution to unknown beings. But humans, they embraced the unknown. The human leaned forward. You've been watching us, studying us. Dran hesitated. Lying was pointless. Humans had already proven their intelligence. Yes, Dran admitted. The human nodded, as if he had expected the answer. And, what do you think of us? The scientists exchanged glances. What could they say? That humans were impossibly strong. That they survived in conditions that should kill them. That they adapted, learned, and pushed beyond their limits like no other species. Dran decided to be honest. You are remarkable. The human smile returned. I know. Kor's eyes widened. He knows. This species wasn't just aware of its strengths. It was confident in them. And that made them even more dangerous. A species that seeks challenges. Dran chose his next words carefully. Most species avoid danger. They seek safety. The human nodded. That makes sense. Dran continued. But humans, you do not avoid danger. You run toward it. The human chuckled. That is also true. Kor's tail twitched. Why were they so calm about this? Dran exhaled slowly. You know your world is classified as a death world, correct? The human's expression didn't change. We've suspected. Suspected? How could they suspect such a thing? No other species had ever thought of their home as a death world. Dran asked, and it does not bother you? The human's reply was simple. No, we like challenges. The room went silent. They like challenges. Dran felt a strange emotion inside him. Unease. These creatures weren't just survivors. They thrived in adversity. The future of contact. The human leaned back. So tell me, what happens now? Dran hesitated. That was the question. They had come here to observe humans, but now they had spoken to them. This changed everything. Kor whispered, we should leave before it's too late. Dran shook his head. It was already too late. The humans knew they existed. Leaving now would only make them more curious. Dran turned back to the human. We wish to learn more. The human grinned. Good. So do we. Kor exhaled sharply. They're inviting us in. Dran's mind raced. This was dangerous. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and incredibly strong. But they were also a mystery worth solving. Dran made his decision. Very well, he said. Let us learn together. The human's grin widened. And with that, first contact with humanity truly began. Dran sat in the control room of the alien research ship, his mind racing. The first contact with humans had been unexpected. They were not afraid. They were not aggressive. They were curious. And now, they wanted to talk. The human, still on the screen, leaned forward. His eyes were sharp, filled with intelligence. You wish to learn about us, the human said. And we wish to learn about you. Dran hesitated. Sharing information was dangerous, but refusing would be worse. He took a deep breath. We agree. The human smiled. Good. Let's start simple. What do we call you? Dran exchanged a glance with Kor. Then he answered. I am Dran. This is Kor. We are scientists. The human nodded. I am Daniel. I am also a scientist. A moment of silence passed. Then Daniel asked, Where are you from? Dran hesitated again. Should he reveal that? But then he realized, the humans would figure it out anyway. We come from a star system far from here. Our people study new worlds. Daniel's eyes gleamed with interest. So, we are not the first species you have studied. Dran nodded. Correct. Daniel's smile widened. But we are the first you have spoken to, aren't we? Kor tensed. How did he guess that? Dran exhaled. Lying was pointless. Yes, you are the first. Daniel leaned back. Interesting. The unpredictable species. Dran could feel it now. The humans were playing a game. A test of words, of knowledge, of control. He decided to ask a question of his own. Your world is dangerous. You should not have survived here. How did you do it? Daniel chuckled. We adapted. Dran frowned. Explain. Daniel's expression became thoughtful. Our planet tries to kill us. Storms, earthquakes, wild animals, diseases. But we don't just survive. We find ways to fight back. We create tools, medicine, and technology. We don't accept limits. We break them. Kor whispered, they fight their own planet. Dran stared at Daniel. This was different from anything they had seen before. Most species adapted by hiding, running, or avoiding danger. Humans, they faced danger directly. A dangerous intelligence. Dran had to know more. What is your greatest strength? Daniel thought for a moment. Then he answered, our minds. Dran raised an eyebrow. Explain. Daniel smiled. We learn fast. We solve problems. We never stop improving. Kor muttered, they are aware of their intelligence. Dran felt a strange chill. Most species were intelligent, but humans were different. They knew it, and they used it. Then Daniel asked a question that made Dran pause. What do you think of us? Dran hesitated. He chose his words carefully. You are unique. Daniel chuckled. That's one way to say it. Kor whispered, they know they are different. Dran nodded, and that made them dangerous. A proposal. Daniel leaned forward. I have an idea. Dran narrowed his eyes. What idea? Daniel's smile returned. An exchange. You learn about us, and we learn about you. Kor's tail twitched. He wants to study us. Dran considered the offer. It was risky. But at this point, refusing was not an option. He nodded. We agree. Daniel's grin widened. Great. Let's start small. You tell me one thing about your species, and I'll tell you one thing about ours. Dran sighed. Very well. Sharing knowledge. Dran decided to give something simple. We are a long-lived species. We can live for hundreds of your years. Daniel's eyebrows rose. That's impressive. Now it was Daniel's turn. We can heal quickly. Our bodies repair themselves faster than most creatures. Kor frowned. Healing. Daniel nodded. Small cuts close in hours. Broken bones heal in weeks. We can even survive injuries that should kill us. Dran and Kor exchanged a glance. That was unusual. Dran leaned forward. Why? Daniel chuckled. Because we need to. Our world doesn't give second chances, so we make our own. Kor exhaled. Their bodies repair themselves. Their minds solve problems. And they have no fear of the unknown. Dran nodded slowly. Humans were not just survivors. They were something else entirely. A dangerous path. Dran knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The humans had opened the door. Now there was no turning back. Dran looked at Daniel. We will continue this exchange. Daniel smiled. Good. I think we'll learn a lot from each other. Dran's expression was unreadable. Yes, we will. As the connection ended, Kor whispered, this will change everything. Dran stared at the dark screen. It already has. Dran sat in the control room, deep in thought. The conversation with Daniel had changed everything. Humans were not just another species. They were something different. They had survived a Class 14 Deathworld, not by hiding, but by adapting, fighting, and pushing their limits. They healed quickly, learned fast, and showed no fear of the unknown. But the most unsettling thing, they knew exactly how unique they were. Kor shifted beside him. This exchange, it is dangerous. Dran sighed. I know, but we must continue. Kor's tail flicked. Why? Dran's voice was firm. Because if we do not understand humans now, one day we will regret it. Kor fell silent. He knew Dran was right. They had to learn more. And to do that, they needed a test. The challenge. Dran activated the communicator. Moments later, Daniel's face appeared on the screen. "Ah, Dran, I was wondering when you'd call." Dran hesitated. Then he spoke. "We wish to understand your abilities better." "A test." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what kind of test?" Dran explained carefully. "We will set up a challenge, a task that requires intelligence, endurance, and adaptability." Daniel's eyes gleamed with excitement. "Sounds fun. What's the challenge?" Dran blinked. He agreed so quickly. Most species would demand details. They would ask about risk, safety, and fairness. Humans? They heard challenge and immediately said yes. Dran took a breath. "We will send coordinates to a neutral location. There we will create an obstacle course designed to push your limits." Daniel grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." Kor whispered. "He does not even hesitate." Dran nodded. This was what made humans dangerous. They did not fear difficulty. They ran toward it. The testing grounds. 2 days later, the test began. The alien research ship hovered above a remote barren moon. It had no atmosphere, no life, just rock, gravity, and silence. A massive structure had been built on the surface. Walls, platforms, tunnels, and mechanical obstacles stood ready. Inside a sealed landing pod, Daniel prepared himself. A voice came through the speakers. "You will have 3 tasks. First, navigate the shifting terrain. Second, solve a complex puzzle under time pressure. Third, survive an endurance test." Daniel chuckled. Understood. The pod's door opened. The test had begun. The first trial. Navigation. The first challenge was a shifting maze. Large mechanical panels moved randomly, changing the path every few seconds. Most species would study the pattern first. They would wait, calculate, and move slowly. Daniel? He ran straight in. Dran and Kor watched in shock. He did not even pause. Daniel moved fast, adapting instantly to the shifting terrain. He didn't hesitate. He adjusted, leaped, and reacted in real time. By the time Dran finished calculating a possible path, Daniel had already escaped the maze. Kor whispered, "They think on their feet." Dran nodded. Humans did not just solve problems. They solved them while moving. The second trial, the puzzle. A large structure blocked Daniel's path. The only way forward was through a locked door, controlled by a complicated alien puzzle. Symbols, patterns, a logic problem designed to slow him down. Most species would sit and analyze. Daniel? He knelt, ran his fingers across the puzzle, and smiled. "I see." Then, to Dran's shock, he started solving it by instinct. He didn't just rely on logic. He experimented, tested, and learned within seconds. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Kor's jaw tightened. He was never taught our language. He was never trained in our logic systems. Dran exhaled. He didn't need to be. Humans did not wait for understanding. They jumped in and figured it out. The final trial. Endurance. The last challenge was simple. Survive. Daniel stepped into a zero-oxygen zone. His suit had a limited air supply. Normally, other species would panic. They would struggle, thinking only about the dwindling oxygen. Daniel, he slowed his breathing. He controlled his movements, minimizing oxygen use. His heart rate remained steady. Dran whispered, "He is conserving energy." Kor shook his head. "Not just that. He is adapting his body to the environment." Daniel did not fight the challenge. He made the challenge work for him. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, the test ended. The system restored oxygen, and Daniel was still standing. He exhaled. That was fun. Dran and Kor stared. Fun. No one called an endurance test fun. Kor whispered, "This is what makes them different." Dran nodded slowly. They enjoy the challenge. The final report. Back in the research ship, Dran sat in silence. Kor placed a document on the table. The results. Every part of the test had proven one thing. Humans were more than just survivors. They were thrivers. They did not fear difficulty. They adapted. They improved. And worst of all, they enjoyed it. Dran turned to Kor. We need to rethink everything. Kor nodded, because we have just seen the true danger of humanity. Dran exhaled. Humans were not just intelligent. They were unstoppable. Dran sat in silence, staring at the test results. The numbers confirmed what he already knew. Humans were different. Kor paced beside him, unsettled. They did not just pass the tests, Dran. They outperformed every expectation. Dran nodded, and they enjoyed it. That was the part that disturbed him the most. Most species saw challenges as obstacles. Humans saw them as opportunities. Dran turned to the communicator. He had to speak with Daniel again. The unexpected request. Moments later, Daniel's face appeared on the screen. Dran, I was wondering when you'd call. So, how did I do? Dran studied him. The human looked completely relaxed, as if the test had been nothing more than a game. Dran chose his words carefully. You exceeded all expectations. Daniel grinned. I had a feeling. Kor muttered. He is proud. Dran ignored Kor's comment. He had one more question to ask. Why do you push yourselves this way? Daniel tilted his head. What do you mean? Dran leaned forward. Most species avoid difficulty. They seek comfort. But humans, you run toward challenges. You take risks. You do not just survive. You thrive. Why? Daniel thought for a moment. Then he spoke. Because that's how we grow. Dran frowned. Explain. Daniel's voice was steady. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We don't have natural weapons. But we have one thing that keeps us moving forward. Our need to improve. Asterisk asterisk. Dran and Kor exchanged glances. Daniel continued. Every hardship, every difficulty, every danger, it makes us better. We learn, we adapt, and we become stronger than before. Dran whispered, You evolve yourselves. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Kor's tail twitched. That is why you survived your Deathworld. Daniel chuckled. Survived. No, Kor. We didn't just survive Earth. We conquered it. Dran exhaled. The truth was undeniable. Humanity did not accept limits. They broke them. A new fear. Kor spoke up, his voice cautious. And now that you have left your Deathworld, what do you plan to do? Daniel's smile didn't fade. Explore, learn, and keep growing. Dran's fingers curled against the table. That was what he feared the most. Other species stayed within their safe zones, content with what they had. Humans. They wanted more. They had conquered the most dangerous planet ever recorded. And now, they were reaching for the stars. Nothing would stop them. A dangerous realization. Dran shut off the communicator. He turned to Kor. We must report this immediately. Kor nodded. The council needs to know. They left the control room and walked through the corridors of the ship. Other crew members turned their heads, sensing the urgency in their steps. In the command center, Dran activated the secure transmission link. The faces of the High Council appeared on the screen. A deep voice spoke. Dran, report your findings. Dran took a deep breath. We have studied the humans. The results are concerning. The council leader frowned. Explain. Dran's voice was grim. Humans are beyond anything we have ever encountered. They do not just survive hardships. They grow stronger from them. The council murmured among themselves. Dran continued. They take risks without hesitation. They solve problems faster than any known species. They treat danger as a challenge, and worse. He paused, then finished. They enjoy it. The council chamber fell into silence. Finally, one of the elders spoke. You fear them. Dran hesitated. Then he nodded. Yes, because nothing will stop them. Another elder asked, Are they hostile? Dran exhaled. No, but they are. Unstoppable. The council exchanged uneasy glances. The choice. The council leader spoke. Dran, you have studied many species. In your expert opinion, should we fear the humans? Dran considered his answer carefully. Then he spoke. Humans do not seek war. They seek progress. But if they are threatened, if they are challenged, he met the council's gaze. They will win, no matter the cost. A long silence followed. Then the council leader sighed. We must decide how to proceed. Dran felt the weight of the moment. Would they welcome the humans, or would they see them as a threat? Kor whispered, No matter what we decide, the humans will continue forward. Dran nodded. The question was no longer if humanity would rise. The question was, who would stand with them? The council chamber was silent. Dran stood before the High Council, waiting for their decision. The discussion had lasted hours. The truth was now clear. Humans were different. They did not fear hardship. They did not break under pressure. They did not just survive. They thrived. The council leader finally spoke. Dran, you have given us much to think about. The question remains, how do we deal with humanity? Dran exhaled. We have two choices. The council listened carefully. We can fear them. We can see their strength as a threat and try to stop them. The room was tense. That was what many had suggested, contain humanity before they became too powerful. Dran continued, or we can do something far wiser. We can stand with them. Kor's tail twitched. The council members exchanged glances. One elder leaned forward. You are suggesting an alliance. Dran nodded. Yes, because if there is one thing I have learned about humans. He looked at Kor. They do not abandon their allies. A new beginning. Daniel sat in the human ship, waiting. He knew what this meeting meant. Would the aliens fear them? Would they see humans as enemies? The communicator beeped. Dran's face appeared on the screen. Daniel smiled. Dran. So, what's the verdict? Dran took a breath. We wish to work with humanity. Daniel's smile widened. Good choice. Kor stepped forward. Do you speak for all of humanity? Daniel laughed. No one speaks for all of us. But I can promise you this. We don't betray our friends. Dran's expression softened. Then let us be friends. A formal alliance was formed that day. The first between humanity and the stars. The future of humanity. Years passed. The galaxy changed. Humanity expanded, explored, and learned. They did what they had always done, pushed forward. Many species feared them, but those who stood with them, they thrived alongside the humans. The galactic maps were redrawn. Where there had once been fear, now there was hope. The humans were not just conquerors. They were builders. They were protectors. They were unstoppable. And the universe would never be the same again. The end.